thanks for everyone for coming. Thanks to Jenna and Steffi for organizing this. The title of this talk is Stop Trying to Fix Everything. I will explain what I mean by that in just a little bit. What I want to start talking about is what happens when things go wrong. So what happens when something breaks? I'm thinking, we deploy something really bad to production. We have downtime, we break a feature, we take down a service, we really annoy our customers, right? What do we do then? We typically get together, we try and figure out what went wrong and stop it happening again in the future, right? We call this, this has lots of names, but we typically call it a post-mortem. We might call this an incident analysis, an accident investigation. Typically, we'll get the entire team together in a room. We'll get everyone talking, try and understand the event, and then figure out how do we stop this happening in the future. That's the idea here. So this is a post-mortem. I'm going to ask a question now, just a really quick question. Thanks to everyone who has your cameras turned on. I'm going to ask you, if you've ever been part of a post-mortem at some point in your career, could you just like wave at the camera, just like make some move. I see most of those hands move. That's amazing. Some people turn their cameras on. Amazing. I'm not at all surprised by that because this is quite a common thing to do in the industry, right? This is a very, very common thing. Some organizations actually make this mandatory, right? So they say whenever you have a failure above a certain scale, whenever you deploy a bug above a certain severity to production, you must do a post-mortem. You must look back on this and figure out how to do better. The standard way of doing this is a root cause analysis, okay? So what we do in a root cause analysis is we analyze the root cause. It's kind of in the title, to be honest. We try and figure out what was the underlying cause, what was the underlying issue so that we can fix it, so that we can stop it happening again. We might call this RCA, root cause analysis. And one of the most common ways of doing a root cause analysis is 5 whys. Can I get another kind of show of hands here? Has anyone here done a 5 whys? 5 whys exercise? Yeah, loads of hands going. So a thing I really like about 5 whys is the entire facilitation guide. So everything you need to know to do a 5 whys is in the title. You just ask why 5 times. That's it. That's the entire guide. You're now all certified 5 whys practitioners. Congratulations. Your certificate is in the mail. So what we do is we start with the event, right? The incident, the bad thing that happened. So maybe the website went down, right? Our website crashed. It was down for an hour. We lost lots of money. That's the event. And then we ask, why? Why did the website go down? And then we looked back. So we looked through our logs. We try and understand what was the last thing that happened before our website crashed. And it turns out the last thing that happened is a user clicked buy. They clicked the buy button. This is obviously an e-commerce site. They clicked the buy button with an empty cart. Okay. Okay, that tells me something. That's information I didn't know before. That's interesting, but it's not really enough to fix the problem. So we ask why again. Why did a user clicking buy with an empty cart cause the website to go down? Well, turns out doing that with an empty cart causes a divide by 0. Somewhere in the code, it tried to divide by 0, crashed the entire website, website went down. This is interesting, right? Now we're starting to narrow this down, right? This feels really good. We're like peeling away layers of this technical onion. We're starting to get to the root cause, starting to get deeper. But it's not enough, right? We've only asked 2 whys so far. So we want to ask again. So we ask, why did clicking buy with an empty cart cause a divide by 0? Well, it turns out we were missing a test for this. We didn't have a test for an empty cart. No one ever wrote a test for that, not an automated test, not a manual test. And that's why the website went down, because we didn't have a test for that. We're starting to get deeper, right? This is the thing I really like about 5 whys. It feels like you're kind of getting down to the core of the problem. But we can go deeper, right? We can ask why again. Why was there no test for an empty cart? Why? Turns out we weren't pair programming, right? This team was doing no pair programming, which means that one person was writing that code all by themselves, and it's really easy to forget things. It's really easy to miss details, really easy to forget really important things if you don't have a second set of eyes, if you don't have someone there helping you and supporting you. So that's interesting, right? Now, and this is interesting. Now we're starting to get down to the organizational issues, why this happened, why the website went down. But we're only 4 whys in, so we want to ask that 5th why. Why was there no pair programming? Turns out there was deadline pressure, right? There was deadline pressure on us as a team. Upper management was really, really pressing us. They said, you have to release all of these features. This is so important. This deadline is the most important thing in the world. We don't have time for you all to be pairing. You have to release these. Everyone writes code all of the time. And now all of a sudden we have a much deeper understanding of the problem. The problem wasn't really the line of code. The problem was that pressures in the organization pushed the team to make mistakes, pushed the team to cut corners, which led to these failures happening. This is one of the things I really like about 5 whys. You feel like you're getting really to the core of the issue, the root cause. Problem is, it doesn't really work. Problem is, this is sort of wrong. Okay, this is what I think a lot of people don't quite realize. 5 whys is incomplete. Why is it 5? Does anyone know why we stop at 5? Because 4 maybe isn't deep enough, right? 4, that's too shallow. 5 whys, that sounds good, but why not 6? Why not do 6 whys?
5 fingers in the hand.
5 fingers in the hand, that's a good answer. There actually is another reason. There's actually a much more important reason. The problem is the 6th why is always capitalism. Okay? See, every 5 whys I've ever done has the exact same structure. First couple of whys, we're talking about the code. We're getting down to what line of code caused this problem. Then we start to talk about the team issues. What was the team doing wrong that caused them to make that mistake? Then we start looking at the bigger organizational problems. And then, of course, we have to acknowledge that the organization exists within a capitalist system. It's that those external pressures, those market forces that are forcing these mistakes. Every 5 whys always ends with capitalism as the 6th why. But there's another problem here. There's actually a deeper, bigger problem. What we're doing when we do a 5 whys is we're giving in to what's called an availability bias or an availability heuristic. We are biased towards answers that we have, towards answers that are available to us, okay? So if you give me an answer, even if it's wrong, I'm gonna prefer that answer because I have the answer, because it's there and I can see it. So when I went down this chain of 5 whys and I gave perfectly reasonable answers, I accepted the first answer each time. I could have given different answers. So when I asked the question, why did the empty cart cause a divide by 0? I said, because we didn't have a test. If we had a test, we could have caught that, we could have properly handled that exception, we wouldn't have had a problem. That's a valid answer. That is a correct, valid answer. But I could also have said, what if it was our language choice, right? Maybe if we picked a different language, a different framework, a different platform, a different library that had better exception handling or handled divide by 0 in a different way, maybe we never would have had this problem, right? That's another valid answer. I asked the question, why was there no test for an empty cart? And I said, well, because we weren't pair programming, because we missed that, because we didn't have people helping us, people supporting us as we wrote code. Again, a valid answer. But I also could have answered, maybe there was just no education about tests. Maybe our organization doesn't value and doesn't stress and emphasize the importance of testing. Our developers think their job is to write code and then they hand it over to a tester, right? A tester writes the tests. So then maybe the root cause here is actually our recruiting process. Maybe we need to be hiring developers who understand the importance of test-driven development, who understand the importance of testing and building in quality. Maybe that's the root cause. That's another valid path here. I could also have answered for this question, why was there no test for an empty cart? Maybe our QA was away. Maybe we have a really good QA. They're fantastic at thinking about these edge cases and all of the things that we should, really make sure we test. Maybe the QA was away. Why was the QA away? Well, QA had food poisoning. In which case then our root cause is actually our QA's lack of cooking skills, right? If a QA had just not undercooked that chicken, the website would still be up, right? That's a valid chain of events. All of these chains of events are valid, okay? We can do this all day, okay? We absolutely can do this all day. So a really important point here, and if you take nothing else away from it, is in any moderately complex system, the concept of a root cause is a lie. It doesn't work. There's no such thing as a root cause in any system that you are working with. So this is why a more mature way, a more reasonable way to approach this problem is with approaches like fishbone diagrams, right? This is an Ishikawa diagram, a fishbone diagram, where we start with a problem on the right, the website went down, and we start to look at what are all the causes that came together to cause this failure. We're looking at primary causes, secondary causes. How did all of these things interact? This is a much better way of doing things. We also have things like failure trees. This is great, okay? Where we're starting to map out all of the causes. How did all of these things interact? This is a real failure tree, by the way, of the sinking of the Herald of Free Enterprise. So you can see here the Herald of Free Enterprise capsizes, water enters the lower car deck. Count the Y's now. So you've got Y, 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 and Y. That's 6 Y's. And the answer is cost of high capacity pump considered prohibitively high. So the 6th Y is again capitalism, right? I don't make the rules. It's in the diagram, okay? Once we've found all of these causes, these primary causes, these secondary causes, all of these things that come together, we try and fix them. We try and stop them happening again. These are the things that cause the bad thing. If we stop the causes, we can stop the bad thing happening in the future. So we put up a sign, right? Who's seen one of these signs? Do not turn off this computer, right? It's there because someone turned off the computer once and it caused lots of pain, right? Some of these signs are really explicit. Do not push, absolutely do not push this button. This button will kill power to all machines in this lab. Graphic design is my passion. I love this, this image here. This picture here is actually a picture I took in the Berlin ThoughtWorks office. It's just downstairs from where I am now. It's a bottle of black liquid. And for those of you who can't read German, it says soy sauce, not cola. I don't know what happened here, but I know something did. Something happened here that caused us to put up this sign to make sure it didn't happen again. Dan North, former thought worker Dan North, lovely person, calls this scar tissue. Okay, when you hurt yourself, if I cut my arm, if I fall over and I cut my arm, my body forms scar tissue over it. It hardens up. That's to protect it, right? It's to stop it happening again in the future. And it's a memory of the thing that happened in the past. This is scar tissue process. This is what we do. When something bad happens, we put up a sign to stop the bad thing happening again. A great place to find scar tissue is a definition of done. Who has a definition of done? Does anyone have a definition of done? Wave your hands. Yeah, I see some hands moving. Right? This is a little checklist, a little thing that we go through to make sure that we are done with work, right? We're moving work through our boards. We're trying to get things complete. This is the checklist we go through to make sure we're actually done. This usually contains some really logical stuff, things like, have we deployed to production, right? It's not done if it's not in front of users. It's not done if it's not providing value to users, okay? Some fairly logical stuff here. But there's also scar tissue in here, okay? I have seen dozens of definitions of done in my career. Every single one of them has scar tissue in it. Look at this one here, update translations. That line is there because someone forgot to update the translations, pushed to production, and then the entire application was in Italian for a few hours. That's a true story. That happened to me last year. And we added this line. We added the update translations line to our definition of done, right? So this is what we do. When something goes wrong, we do a post-mortem. We get together, we figure out all of the causes, and then we assign action items to fix them. We put up little signs. This is every single post-mortem I've ever been to. Find the problems, find the causes of our problems, and just stick a sign over it. Assign an action item to fix the bad thing. If we stop enough bad things, the bad things will stop, right? Does this remind you of your last post-mortem? Those of you who've done post-mortems before, is this familiar? I see some nodding heads there. Does this remind you of your last retrospective, maybe? Ooh, yeah? Similar to your last retrospective. We do the same thing. What went wrong? How do we stop the bad things happening again? Let's assign some action items to that. Put up a sign. Add an item to our definition of done. We do this a lot. This is like a standard pattern. This is part of our continuous improvement, right? This is mostly how we do continuous improvement. Find all our causes, put a sticker over them. So I'm interested about this. If this is a pattern that we keep doing, I want to investigate it. I want to ask questions like, what's in here? What's in this big container of problems, right? So let's pull out this Ishikawa diagram, this fishbone diagram again. This comes from mechanical engineering, comes from industrial engineering. So you see we've got things like equipment and materials, but we can kind of translate this to our domain, right? To software engineering. So we can say our problem was the website went down, right? What were the causes that might have contributed to that? On the equipment side, maybe we ran out of memory. That's a perfectly valid answer, right? We ran out of memory, the server went down, the website went down. Maybe there was an unclear error message, right? This is a classic one. The server clearly tried to tell us something was wrong, but it was an incomprehensible error message and no one did anything. Classic mistake, right? I've seen this every team I've ever been in. Maybe it was an environment issue, right? Maybe our production server was trying to talk to our staging database, right? That's not going to end well, right? That's a cause that contributed to the website going down. Maybe it was a process issue, right? So that same issue again. We didn't have tests in the pipeline. All of these are based on true stories. All of these are stickies that have been on the wall in post-mortems that I've been in. If you've been in post-mortems as well, you've probably also seen very similar stickies. I'm sure you can think of lots more. But I'm really interested in these two. Because people and management here are the causes of our problems. Despite what this diagram says, managers are actually people, but in this model, this way of thinking about the world, people are the causes of our problems. They are liabilities. People make mistakes, and that leads to our website going down. It's actually inherent in how we do things. This is why we put up signs, right? Don't touch that. Make sure you do this, right? But I don't like this. I'm just going to go right out and say I'm not a fan of this system. It's a little sad that I have to say this, but I think we should reject systems that see people as problems. We should outright reject them. You've seen this, you know, the earth is recovering, right? Maybe we're the virus, right? Maybe people are the problem. when people are the problem, your solutions start to look a lot like getting rid of people, right? Your solutions start to look like, just put them over there, just get rid of them, right? Put up a sign, you know, it starts with the really, really little things. Don't touch this. Make sure you do this in the right order. You know, don't shop there. Little things, but we know where that ends, okay? I don't think we should be using systems that see people as problems. I think we should reject these systems out of hand. There's a moral stance I'm going to take here. We should reject these systems, which of course raises the question, how do we do that? How do we do that? We do a blameless postmortem. A blameless postmortem, we start off by emphasizing that it's blameless. That's the first thing we say. We are not here to blame anyone. We are not here to fire anyone. We're not here to punish anyone. We are here to get better, right? No one is going to be fired in this meeting. We want to improve. We want to do better in the future. We say things like, we understand and we truly believe that everyone did the best they could, right? It's our prime directive, right? It's exactly what we say at the start of almost every retro. We are emphasizing that we believe in the best of people. We are assuming the best and we are not blaming them. We're trying to get better. This is really important because what this does is this helps build a safe space, right? When we build a properly safe space, a blameless environment, it's much easier for people to speak up. It's much easier for people to be honest and tell their side of the story. Here's what I saw happen. Here's, oh, you know, I pressed the wrong button and then here's what happened. We need those perspectives if we're going to get better. And setting a blameless, safe environment is one of the most important things we can do to get that. So we do this. We do a blameless postmortem. Then we carry on. We do our 5 whys. We do our failure tree. We do our fishbone diagram. And we come up with our sequence of events. I've kind of simplified this here. Okay, the reality is you would have multiple kind of chains of events. You'd have branching options here. But just for this slide, I've kind of simplified it just so I don't spend ages here. And we say, someone gets up at the front, the facilitator of this meeting, they get up at the front and they say, we understand that there are people in this meeting, people in this team that had a part in this chain of events that led to the website going down. We only want to do better. So let's start at the rootest of the root causes, right? Let's start on the left and let's work our way across. Let's see what we can do about the root cause. Okay, so we've got capitalism on the left and we go, right, that's a big one. I mean, we're like 8 people. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this one. We're going to need a lot more guillotines than we have right now. So we're going to circle around to that. Obviously we know it is the root cause, yes, but we're going to circle around to it. Let's move over to the next one, which is deadline pressure. And right now this is good because deadline pressure is something that's within our organization, right? Something within our business. This is something we have control over, right? And you know what? Our team lead, she's actually going to be talking to some of the upper management in a few, I think it's in a month and a half, right? They're going to have a round table, all the team leads, all of the executive board, they're going to have a round table where they get to kind of raise their concerns. It's a really good, great place to share. And what we're going to do is okay, so the team lead gets out her notebook, she writes it down, she writes down deadline pressure, bad, she underlines it. And we say, okay, so in 2 months, we are going to let them know. We're going to pass that on. Obviously, we know that's not going to work because, you know, we did it last time as well and nothing happened. But, you know, we are going to try and do something. We know it's not going to work because we tried it before. So let's move across again. Let's move further down this chain. And we have tests not written. Perfect. This is something we have control over. This is entirely within our team, right? We don't have to talk to upper management. We don't have to overthrow the capitalist class to fix this. We can fix this within our team, okay? So we get out our Sharpie, we get out our definition of done, and we add another line. We add, have you written an end-to-end test for this, right? There you go, we've updated our definition of done. We did it. We did it, and we've done the exact same thing again, right? We've just put up another sign. Don't do this. Don't forget, right? We just put up a sign. We're doing the exact same thing. The problem is, when you have a chain of events, you have a sequence of events with capitalism at one end and a website going down on the other end, you're going to move down that chain of events and you're going to stop where you have the most leverage. And that's going to be at your team. That's going to be on the people in your team. So you're just going to do this again. This is, again, exactly what we're doing. We're assigning those action items. You know, make sure you update the end-to-end tests. We're doing it blamelessly. No one got fired, but we are doing the exact same thing. We go looking for problems and we find them and they're people shaped, right? We don't call them problems, but we do try and stop them because they're problems, right? So doing a blameless postmortem is incredibly important. Building a safe space where people feel free to share their perspectives, feel free to share their views and their experiences is so important. It is the first, it is the biggest, and it is the most important step you can take. But blameless isn't enough. Blameless is not enough. I think you need to do something a little bit bigger. I think you need to do something more fundamental than that. And I want to try and tell you what that is, but I'm going to tell you a story first. So I'll explain the cat in just a little bit. So I want to tell you a story of a post-mortem I was in. I think this was last year. And something went wrong. I forget what it was. I think we maybe turned the website Italian. I forget the details. But we got the entire team in the room. We had a facilitator. They were great. They did the blameless thing. They said, we're not going to be assigning any blame here. No one's getting fired. Let's talk. They did really, really well. They asked some fantastic questions. You know, what happened here? Why did that happen? Oh, tell me about this. Really, really good. We had these fantastic discussions. We were putting up stickies all over the wall. And the whole time this was happening, the whole group was together in front of the whiteboard, and there was someone standing just behind us. And they had a stack of stickies and a Sharpie, and they were writing down. And anytime someone said anything that sounded like an action, oh, we should add a test for this. Or, oh, what if we updated that library? Or, oh, what if we did this differently? Anytime someone did that, they wrote down, they wrote it down. They stuck up the sticky and they put it on the wall in a big section that was called action item. They were like this cat. They were just ready to pounce, ready to jump on anything that sounded like an action item. And the meeting was an hour long, okay? 45 minutes in, this person who's capturing all of these action items, this cat, kind of looked at us and went, and obviously we ignored them because we were having a really good conversation about the system. We were learning loads. It was really interesting. We completely ignored them. About a minute later, they said, we have to assign action items now. We have to assign these action items. And we said, well, we're kind of discussing something. We're in the middle of something. Like, could we just finish this? And they said, all right, fine. Just like, could we wrap it up in like 2 minutes? 2 minutes, and then we need to assign these action items, because otherwise, what's the point of this meeting, right? So we wrapped it up. We kind of had to cut that really interesting conversation short, and then we assigned the action items. This person was like, okay, who's going to do this one? Action item 1, Steve, you're going to do this one. Okay, Christoph, you want to do this one? Yep. Okay, come on. So we assigned all these action items. I think we did 2 things in that meeting. We did 2 very different things in that meeting. We were learning about the system, and we were trying to fix the system. And we ran out of time for both of them, because we were obsessed with assigning action items. We were obsessed with this. This was like our whole thing. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Maybe from your last retro, I see some hands going up. I see some waving hands there, right? Maybe from your last retro, maybe from your last post-mortem. Okay, I have some advice here. Stop this. Stop doing this. I don't think this works. I think, as I said, what's happening here is we're doing two different activities in the same meeting. Learning and fixing. Those are two very wildly different activities, okay? So when we are trying to learn about something, I'm asking questions like, what happened? What happened? How did that happen? How did this thing go wrong? I'm trying to dig in, I'm trying to understand something. When I'm trying to fix something, I'm asking questions like, what will stop this? How can we stop this thing happening in the future, right? These questions sound really similar. They're both short questions. They begin with what, but they are very, very different activities. When I'm asking what will stop this, when I'm trying to fix something, I am looking for the simplest possible answer that will work, right? Because as soon as I've fixed the problem, I'm done. Like, my mission is accomplished. I can go home. When I'm trying to understand the system, I'm going to keep asking the same question. I'm going to ask someone, what happened? I'm going to get an answer from them. I'm going to ask someone else the exact same question. What was your perspective on that event? I'm looking for the most complicated possible answer here, right? I'm trying to understand all the crunchy, difficult details of this event. I'm trying to tell stories about this. I'm trying to really, really understand things. What made your head hurt? What confused you? What do you still not understand? I'm not interested in that when I'm trying to fix something. I just want a simple thing that will fix it. Learning and fixing are two very different activities. They're related, which is important. Because if we want to fix something, we need to understand it. If we want to fix something, we need to understand it properly, okay? And what happens when we have this, this person jumping on the action items? We need to assign action items, please hurry up. When we have that person, we run out of time for learning, and then we jump into fixing with an incomplete understanding of the system. I think we have a pretty fundamental problem in this industry where we obsess over fixing. We care more about fixing than we do about learning, about the systems we are building, the systems we are part of. I think we need to put learning over fixing. This is a really, really simple thing to say, a very, very easy thing to say, really hard to do because we think we do this already, okay? Try this. In your next retro or your next post-mortem, at the start of the meeting, announce to the entire room, we have a learning culture. So we are going, so the focus of this meeting is to learn, and everyone will clap. They're like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%. And then say, so we won't be trying to fix anything today. We will not be assigning any action items today. All of a sudden, I'll look at you like you've lost your fucking mind, okay? We think we value learning over fixing, but we don't. This is really hard because you have to learn a lot of new skills for this. There's a lot of stuff that goes into building a learning culture. Things like actually putting an intrinsic value, understanding the intrinsic value of learning, right? Understanding that learning has intrinsic value, even if you don't fix something as a part of it. You need to learn how to ask questions really well. Not just what happened, but when that thing happened, how did it make you feel? When you saw that error message, why did you act in that way? What did you think of in the past? What other events did that remind you of? Really getting the full detail, the full complexity of the events. We need that. We need to learn how to tell stories with the things we learn. I said a lot of events, a lot of companies make incident reports, make post-mortems mandatory. Most companies also make the reporting of this mandatory. So if you do a post-mortem, you have to write it down, an incident report. Quick show of hands. Who here has ever read an incident report that you didn't write? It does happen, yeah. Some people do. I'm actually not saying it's impossible. It does happen from time to time, but it's very rare. Usually what happens is we write down this big report, we do our 5 whys, we do our failure tree, we do whatever, we put it in a document, we put it in a wiki page, we file it away, and nobody ever reads it again. We file it away where information goes to die. All of those learnings, all of those things that we can share, we don't learn from them. We need to learn to tell stories, compelling stories that people actually want to listen to, that actually help people learn. It's not a skill we have. It's not something I think we're super good at, not something which the current setup really prepares us for. We need to learn how to learn from the good things as well, not just the bad things, right? Accidents, by their very nature, are exceptional events. They're anomalies. They're hopefully, for most of you, hopefully, production outages, incidents are rare events. Yes, we can learn from them, but we should also try and learn from the week where nothing happened, the week where everything worked perfectly. What helped it work perfectly? How do you do a retro on just good things? This is a classic pattern in a retro, right? You do your, here are the good things, here are the bad things, and we kind of skip over the good things because we want to fix the bad things. We need to learn how to learn from the good as well. We have a lot of things we need to do here. So there's way too much that goes into building a learning culture that I can actually fit into a single meetup talk. But I do want to leave you with, because I just talked about a lot of very high level stuff, a lot of skills you need to build up, and this is going to take time. But I want to leave you with a very, very simple bit of advice. Simple, concrete, actionable bit of advice. You can do this in your next retro. You can just do this tomorrow if you want, okay? Wait. Literally just put a little bit of time between learning and fixing. Put them in separate meetings. I made the suggestion once. I said to the facilitator, I said, could we have them in separate meetings? And the facilitator said, oh, that's a fantastic idea. We'll have a 45-minute meeting for learning, and then we'll have a 15-minute meeting for fixing, and they'll be right next to each other and in the same room. I was like, it's not really what I meant, is it? Put them separately. Treat them like angry, treat them like fighting kids. Put them in different rooms, separate them. A really good rule of thumb I like is one shower. Have one shower between learning about a system and trying to fix it. The reason I say this is there was a really good bit of research a couple of years ago that I think it was 70% of people reported that they got their best ideas, their most original, interesting, novel ideas in the shower. When they weren't stressed by someone saying we need to assign action items, when they were relaxed, when they had time to process, when they had time to think. Admittedly, that bit of research was funded by a German shower manufacturer, so I'm not sure how much I believe it, but it is a really good story. I like the story. Put one shower between learning and fixing, okay? Give it time to soak in your brain. Give it a day, give it maybe 2 days. By all means, come up with ideas, but treat them as that. Treat them as ideas. These are hypotheses, a suggestion. Give them a few days to soak in your brain and then come back to it after you've had a shower, after you've had time to think, reflect. So that's the concrete bit of advice. Simple, concrete bit of advice. The title of this talk is Stop Trying to Fix Everything. I hope everyone's ready for an earth-shattering hot take here, but fixing things is good. Actually, you should probably fix things. Like, I hope I'm not like being too controversial here, but fixing good. If you see something broken, you should fix it. Sometimes you do need to invest time in just fixing the damn thing. The problem is when we try to fix everything. The problem is when we obsess over fixing everything. And we don't say this. Nobody comes into the office and says, my job today is to fix absolutely everything. But, you know, if we just assign enough action items, we won't have accidents again, right? It's kind of the quiet part that we don't say out loud, yeah? We need to stop obsessing over fixing everything. We need to stop narrowing our view of quality, narrowing our view of safety to just stop all the bad things. If we just stamp out all the causes of the bad things, we'll be good. We just stop narrowing our view like that. There's a really good Todd Conklin quote that I like, which is just simply that the problem comes when the pressure to fix things outweighs the pressure to learn. And I think that's something that we do a lot in this industry. When we try and build a learning culture, when we really invest in that, I think we're trying to, in service of a bigger ideal here, of a bigger goal, and that's we're trying to empower people over just stopping them making mistakes. We want to actually empower people with knowledge, with understanding, empower people through learning, not just put up a sign, don't touch that, put up a little guardrail around them to stop them hurting themselves or something else. We want to empower people over just stopping them. See, the trick here is when you put these ideas together, the big trick for me, the secret is an empowered team, a team with a culture of learning, a team that actually invests time and effort in learning and understanding the system they are building, the system they are part of, a team that is empowered with that knowledge and empowered with the ability to make changes, with the ability to take control of the system that they are part of. That's the best fix. An empowered team that understands the system they're a part of is the best way to fix things. So look, like I said, fixing isn't the problem. Sometimes you do want to fix things. Something's urgent. Sometimes you just want to get in a big room and figure out how to make it not broken anymore. Sometimes you just want to put up a sign. I'm not saying don't add things to your definition of done. I'm not saying don't put up instructions or checklists or signs to stop people or to help people not make mistakes. There is value in the things on the right. I just think there's more value in the things on the left. Okay, thank you. That's it. That's the end of the talk. Thank you for coming to a talk where I just told you to have 2 meetings instead of 1. There's a reading list, a quick reading list, because I didn't really give you very much in the way of like concrete advice other than like have a shower before you fix things. So if you are thinking, oh, I really want to run a better post-mortem and better incident analysis, read this guide. This was very much the sort of gateway drug for me into this whole topic. This is the Etsy debriefing facilitation guide. It's very short, it's like 30 pages, very practical, really, really good. I can't recommend this strongly enough. And it's also got a very good bibliography, so you can read more. I will send out links to all of these things, so don't worry. The underlying ideas that we're talking about here are what's known as Safety 1 and Safety 2. Safety 1 is this slightly older view of safety, where we see people as liabilities. People are problems that need to be fixed. And just safety is when we stop the bad things happening. And Safety 2 is a more mature way where we start to see people as the most important, the most valuable part of our systems. This paper is very good. It's, I think, 7 pages long. There is also an entire book called the same thing, called Safety 1 and Safety 2, also by Eric Holnagel, recommended. But this paper is a very good introduction. I like this book by Sidney Dekker, The Safety Anarchist, which is basically exploring what happens if you try to apply some of the ideas behind anarchism, some of the principles there to, that's to say, human-centric principles to high safety systems, to high reliability systems, to critical systems. And it turns out quite good things. This is quite a long but an interesting book, highly recommended. And then finally, these two, some of my favorite books, Normal Accidents, looks at the inherent complexities in our systems and why root cause analysis is a lie and operator error or human error is pretty much never the problem. While Thinking in Systems offers kind of a more detailed framework for how do we actually think about and deal with these systems that we are a part of. So with that, I can actually say thank you. That is the actual end of the talk. You can find me on the Bird website. Wouldn't recommend it, but you can. I love feedback, so feel free to put like feedback in the meetup comment, in the meetup comments in the chat. Otherwise, we can go to questions and things.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much. The chat has been super active. So we've got some questions, a lot of comments. Birgitta also solved the mystery of the soy sauce Coca-Cola bottle or a cola bottle. So it's been very active. But would you like if I start reading the questions?
Yeah, please go for it. Go for
Okay, great. Bjorn earlier on wrote, shouldn't it update translations shouldn't it be in the build task? And this was in reference to regarding translation or update translations.
Yes, probably. I put it there just mostly for the joke about accidentally turning an application Italian for an hour. But also just an example of like how we build scar tissue processing. It can take many forms, but the short answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. The next question was for Tudor Timmy, who I see has an awesome hammock setup there. Very nice. The question is, why do you need to go all the way to the 5 in the 5 whys? Why not stop at some point once you reach a point where you see the cause is something you can't control?
Because that's a good question. So largely because 5 fits on your hand. 5 is a nice round number, and it feels nice when you get to the deeper issue, right? So you're like, we understand that it wasn't this line of code, but really it was this organizational problem. So even if it isn't always in our power to fix, and several of these things aren't, trying to make it visible is the point of a root cause analysis. We tend to, you could stop sooner. And I've certainly seen 5 whys that have stopped at 3 or 4 because we found something interesting. And we thought, that seems fine. So.
Cool, thank you. The next question is from Fernando, and it is regarding learning over fixing. So we put learnings in the sprint backlog instead of action items beside the stories. If you need more context too, and you're still in the call, please feel free to chime in.
No, I think I get what you're saying there. Learning isn't something, I wouldn't say that you would put the learnings into the sprint backlog, because it's not something you would do, right? It's not that, we learned something about the system and we're going to do that next week or next iteration. So managing that knowledge, sharing that knowledge with the team, sharing with the next team and everyone who needs to hear it, that's really hard. The solution is almost certainly not putting it in Jira. As to the actual solution, that's hard, and I don't really have a good answer for that. Like I said, I think telling stories, actually writing interesting documents that people want to read and will learn from, I think is a really great step. For me, what I would love to see one day is an onboarding guide that includes, now go read about these really interesting incidents where you can learn fun things. I'd love to see that. I haven't yet, but I would love to see it.
Cool, thank you. A question from Paul regarding learning over fixing also. What are retro formats focusing on the good that you can recommend?
Ooh. That actually is something I struggle with as well, because I would say this is a space I'm trying to explore as well. One of the things I have tried to do is, so the Etsy debriefing facilitation guide that I recommended, the central idea here is that you build a timeline. And you keep asking these questions. What happened there? What do you think happened there? What did this event make you think? What did it make you do? I've tried doing that on boring weeks, and honestly, it didn't work very well. I'm still experimenting with that. I'm not 100% sure. I'm absolutely not gonna pretend that I have all of the answers here, or that I could come in and snap my fingers and make an amazing learning culture, but understanding where we put our values. So I maybe wouldn't do a retro and just say, let's only focus on the good, but I would say, let's maybe put more time there than we do normally. Because I think an anti-pattern that I see with retros a lot is we have, here's the good, here's the bad. We're just gonna skip through the good because we see that as like, oh, well, that's fine, right? Let's spend a bit of time digging into that. Oh, this thing went well. What made it went? What made it go well? What events led to this being a success? How could it have been a failure? What thing happened that changed that path? Again, so this is one of those skills, is that asking questions. How do we dig into events and understand their inherent complexities, both the good and the bad? The idea behind focusing on the good is that you have more data points with good, right? So an incident, right? Like most people, okay, if you're lucky, maybe you have a couple of postmortems a year, right? You have a few production outages. That's not a great like feedback cycle, is it? Okay, you only find out. How do you know if the fixes actually worked? Because it's such a rare event anyway, right? So trying to focus on just the normal things that happen. I don't have an easy answer, but I think it's tied in with learning to ask those right questions and dig into the complexity of the systems we're working with.
Okay, great. Another question. What can QAs do to mitigate deployment failures before they happen?
Ooh, I'm a QA, so what do I do to prevent deployment failures before they happen? Build your pipeline, lots of stuff in pipeline. Put everything in pipeline, automate everything. Read the book, Continuous Delivery is the really short answer there. The way I like to visualize a pipeline is you're taking code on your laptop, which you have zero confidence in. It maybe this is going to break production, or you have fairly low confidence, and and at the end of it is production. As you go along that pipeline, you want to do everything you possibly can to build up confidence. So this is the question I always ask. When I see a pipeline, I see we have these tests, this builds up confidence. I have these tests, it builds up confidence. I would just ask the question, what else can I do to build up confidence? And that's going to be very context dependent. Before now, I worked with a system once that had a really unreliable deployment on production. So we just cloned production. So we had 2 versions of production, and we would always do it on this ghost version of production first to test that deployment, because that was the thing that helped us build confidence in the actual deployment step. But yeah, so how do we build confidence in this pipeline is very context dependent. It depends. So.
Great, thank you. A question from Kai. Does it make sense to try to have blameless postmortems in a Scrum fall environment, and in brackets, rigid control from the top of the organization?
Do you think shouting at people will help in a Scrum fall environment? Yeah, absolutely. The point of a blameless postmortem is that we're building a safe space. Is that we're building an environment where people feel confident and able to share their perspectives. That's really important, regardless of what project management structure you have. Building a safe environment where people feel safe to contribute is, I would say, the most important thing you can do really at all. So start there, like make that step number 1 in anything.
Great, thank you. From Malta, you just mentioned the book Continuous Delivery, and the question, is it the one by Herr Humble and David Farley?
It is, yes.
Great.
It's good.
All right, that's all the questions we have so far in the chat. I don't know if anybody has any more to add.
There's one more.
Thanks.
Check.
Okay. Thanks, Steffi. What would be your recommendation to create a blameless culture in general between developers and QA?
Ooh, between developers and QA. I hate this idea of QA and developer being an adversarial relationship. QA is trying to find the bugs. QA is trying to screw over the developers and find out where they did wrong. It works a lot better when we see this as when we are working together, when we are actually collaborating. But we have the same goal, right? We both want to deliver valuable quality software and make the world a bit better, hopefully. We bring different perspectives. So the best thing to do is to combine those perspectives. It is, again, look at the same object, the same event, the same line of code from different perspectives, not just do, make this an adversarial thing where developer writes code, QA tries to break it. That was my first job. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun, but I realized a few years later that it wasn't a very good way of approaching problems.
Cool. I just seen the chat. Brigitte has written QA equals destroyer of worlds. Okay. And we have another question from Rahul, and it is, shouldn't there be learning for successes as well? So you make visible what contributed to making things work. Any thoughts?
Yes, 100%, 100%. So if you want to get a little bit deeper here, the this underlying topic, safety 2, safety 1 and safety 2. Safety 2 takes the view that most systems, most complex systems that we work with are in a constant state of partial failure, right? And it's not that bad things, like when a bad thing happens, a failure happens, it's that the inherent resilience in the system allows the system to adapt to and survive that partial failure, right? So it's understanding what helps keep that system resilient is the way I would frame that. So absolutely 100% yes. If something almost went wrong, if something almost broke, you know, like, oh, we almost committed that bad line of code, ask yourself, what stopped that happening? What part of our system made us more resilient to that particular failure? Yes, absolutely. Learn from your successes is something we need to do a lot more of. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Those seem to be all the questions. Yeah. And yeah, this chat has been really interesting to keep track of. It's super active and lots of fun comments also. So, but I think that's all the questions for now.
Cool, thank you. Thank you everyone for the questions. That was engaging. Thank you.
And lots of nice thank yous and everything.
Can we ask per voice as well? The chat is very hard on the phone.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I heard also in the chat I saw popping up that people should have the mood or the building high quality software together just popped very quickly in there. And associated with the thought that somebody also asked, how can QA, what can QA do to reduce problems to reach production? So it's a popular question, right? And the answer was to look into the pipeline all the way through. But isn't that just so much you can do performing on the pipeline or seeing how your pipeline gets from your laptop to production? I think it wouldn't be only the problem reaching the production that is the real issue, but having an outage. And you don't really, possibly, so you don't really control always if the failure that happened is because of a failure in the code, so you could track as one QA person, or it's a failure on the whole design of the solution, the resiliency of the solution. So how do you separate? This is something that, hey, my solution isn't very resilient, so I must be really concerned with the QA. Think of this strict change management process of Scrum-Fall organizations to, okay, I can be a bit more relaxed on my QA or have more experiment and be faster to deliver business value because I know my solution is resilient. So it wouldn't everything go down if a bug goes to production, but some self-healing would solve it. How do you balance this both one person QA mission and the whole solution design challenge?
That's a great question. I don't think it's one person QA mission. I always frame my job as, my very first job out of university was a tester, some sort of tester, systems tester maybe, I forget. But now my job then was to test software, right? Find bugs, find out if this is resilient, right? Answer all those questions. My job now is to help build a team that is capable of doing that, right? Is to help support the team in that journey. It's never one person journey. That's something I want to push back against really strongly. And as for how you separate them, I don't know if you necessarily can. I I would find that very hard to do. When I say pipeline, so I kind of jump to this answer of pipeline here, talking about, what happens between you pressing git push and it being in production. But there's a lot more that happens there, right? We have the entire development cycle, right? We have writing all of this code, pairing when you do that, TDD, all of the practices that go into it, making sure that the solution we're building is actually fit for purpose, making sure it's actually solving someone's problem and it's doing it in a scalable way. It's not building up so much tech debt that's just going to stop the business next week. We also have, and this is this idea of shift left. Okay, so we have shift left, shift right, but we also have shift right, which is let's look at what's happening in production. Let's actually understand more about the system. Monitoring, observability, and I didn't talk about it, it's one of my favorite subjects, but chaos engineering is a fantastic approach to learning about your system in production, to learning about what happens when things break. We need to think about how can we build in quality at every step in the life cycle, from someone's idea to it is running on the server, and how we can learn at every step as well. So I don't know if you necessarily can separate them and say, here is one section and now we're going to the next. Does that help? I feel like I didn't answer your question, but that maybe help a little bit.
I don't think there is an answer. I just wanted to see how you perceive it, but thank you.
Thanks. Does anybody else have a question still on their mind? Okay, I think then we can wrap things up.